Okay guys, so we got started on this chapter last week. We're going to move ahead a little bit and go into a little more detail. So in 1789, Congress set up the first three executive departments, State, Treasury, and War. And the main reason these departments were set up was to help the president run the country. They realized it was too much work for just one person to do, so they created multiple different cabinet positions. Now, that number started off small with just 3 or 4, and it's grown to many more cabinet positions today. Each one of these departments is set up in a similar manner, and the person who is chosen to be the head of the department is called the Secretary. So it's Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of Education. Now there is an exception. The leader of the Justice Department is called the Attorney General, and that's William Barr, who we mentioned in the past lesson. The president can choose whoever he wants for these positions, but then they must be confirmed by the Senate. The department heads or the secretaries have many roles. They're members of the president's cabinet, and they give him advice, and they report to him on their areas. So the Secretary of Education, they're going to be the one who the president talks to when he's got questions about how our nation's schools are doing, or when they want to come up with a plan to make changes. Secretary of Transportation is going to deal with the roads and things like that. So it's their job to make sure the president's wishes are getting carried out for each one of their departments and their fields. They can often try to get more budget or more of the budget allotted to them so they can improve their field and improve their programs. Within each executive department, there's lots of smaller agencies called bureaus, and we'll get into those a little bit later this week in the next lesson. But many of the people involved in these departments and agencies are career people, which means they're not necessarily tied to the president. They could stay there through many different administrations. Like you could have somebody working in the Department of Defense, and they could have been in there from when George Bush was president and stayed when Obama was president and still be there when Donald Trump is president. A lot of times they're not really tied to a political party. But almost certainly, each time a new president comes in, they're going to pick new secretaries. So let's go into a little bit of detail about what these departments actually are. The first one is called the Department of State, and their main responsibility is to be like the president's right-hand man, and their job is to give him advice and deal with foreign relations. So their main job is to keep the president informed about what's going on with our relation with other countries and to let him know when things are getting tense. Their job is to kind of try to squash the conflicts and prevent them from turning into something bigger. And our current Secretary of State is a guy named Mike Pompeo. The next one is the Department of Treasury. They deal with taxes, they deal with printing the money, and they deal with all kinds of things that involve our government and the economy and the money. You may have seen this guy on the news recently. His name is Steve Mnuchin. He's been on there for trying to get involved with the stimulus deal and the coronavirus relief packages. He was also on the news in the past year or two ago. I don't know if you guys remember, but they were talking about redesigning the $20 bill to put Harriet Tubman on it, and I believe those plans have been pushed back and delayed. The next one is the Department of Interior, and they manage public land and resources like natural parks and things like that. Then there's the Department of Justice. That's William Barr, the Attorney General, and their job is to give legal advice to the president and represent the United States in court cases. Parts of the Department of Justice are like the FBI and the CIA. The next one is the Department of Agriculture, and they help the country's farmers figure out how to best use their resources. They're also involved with the free and reduced lunch program they have at many schools. So during World War II, they were very important because the government basically asked farmers to grow certain crops to feed soldiers that were overseas. And sometimes the government will actually pay farmers extra to grow stuff that they weren't necessarily growing before. Being a farmer is really difficult, and the Department of Agriculture's job is to make sure we have enough food and resources to feed our country. The Department of Commerce deals with business and trading within foreign countries. They also issue patents to people who've invented things. The next one is the Department of Labor. And the Department of Labor is really important. Their job is to try to make sure that working conditions are safe for the workers. And some of the ways they've done that are by setting minimum wage, setting hour restrictions on certain jobs. Like, I don't know if you guys are aware, but a semi-truck driver is only allowed to drive a certain amount of hours per day because that job becomes more and more dangerous the more tired you get. They've also put limits on things like child labor, because a long time ago, it was not uncommon to have little kids less than 10 years old working in factories. And the Department of Labor shut those things down. Their job is to make sure that wages are fair, set prices on certain products, and make sure that work and safety conditions are upheld. Before the Department of Labor was around and enforcing these rules, factories could get away with a lot of unsafe practices. The next one is the Department of Defense, and the Department of Defense controls the country's armed forces, and they give the president advice on any kind of military matters. Okay, the next one is the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And they have lots of responsibilities. They oversee building projects. They are involved with things like Section 8 housing. They are also involved with special loans for people buying their first time home. And they have multiple different things they work on with houses in neighborhoods, trying to turn neighborhoods around that are slowing down and starting to fall apart. The next one is the Department of Transportation. They deal with transportation through multiple different methods. It could be the highway, it could be the airways, the railroads, the boats, and their job is to make sure that all of those things are maintained and kept in order. Then there's the Department of Energy, and they deal with finding and protecting our nation's resources for energy, whether that's oil, gas, solar, and wind. They also regulate the use of nuclear power. Okay, so the next one is the Department of Education, and this one goes between 2 pages. Their responsibility is to provide financial help for all levels of education. So one thing they're involved with right now is giving funding to schools to make sure we have the supplies so we can be open during this coronavirus. The current Secretary of Education is a woman named Betsy DeVos, I'm sorry. Betsy DeVos is the Secretary of Education, and her approval process was a little bit sketchy. The president could pick whoever he wants, but when it came time to vote, it was a tie. And what that meant is Mike Pence actually had to get involved and vote and be the tiebreaker in the Senate. Then there is the Department of Health and Human Services. And they manage multiple things like Social Security and welfare for retired workers. They are also going to be involved with developing the coronavirus vaccine and making sure those things get out safely and to the people who need them. And the last one for today is the Department of Veteran Affairs. They operate many different programs to try to benefit veterans and their families. I don't know if you guys are aware, but for people who spend an extended time in the military, once they get out, there's multiple programs set up to try to help them either go to college or buy a home or get the medical care that they need. Okay guys, so I need you to open up Google Classroom, go into Chapter 8, Lesson 2, and knock out that worksheet.